Now, about 24 hours after information leaked that President Muhammadu Buhari wasn't in know about the questionable reinstatement of a dismissed pension fraud suspect into the civil service, the presidency has refused to speak on the matter. The allegations that President Muhammadu Buhari was briefed on the scheme too surreptitiously, or recall Abdul Rashid Maina, was raised in an internal memo by the head of civil service, Winifred Oyoita, signaling an escalation in the scandal and its growing impact on the president's avowed war on corruption. Public affairs analyst Adeniyi Kunu joins us now to talk more about this. Thank you very much indeed for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Just as you heard now, it emerged that Abba Kyari, the chief of staff, and the head of service, Oyoita, had very, heated exchange, yesterday in council chambers as to, the leaked memo indicating that the president was aware of this shameful act of trying to reinstate a man linked to corruption through the back door. What's your reaction to this?
Well, my reaction is that anybody who must come to equity must come with clean hands. But it appears as if many people have soiled hands at the moment. If we actually took a retrospect to October 11, that memo, that particular one, dated October 23, that was sent to the president, actually indicated that there was a FaceTime between Oyoita and the president, where she told the president that if this man is reinstated, it will definitely dent the anti-corruption stance of the president. Another thing she said was that she was initially told by the Attorney General of the Federation, who wrote throughout, of course, to the Federal Civil Service Commission about the reinstatement. And I must say very well that such high-profile readmittance into the government system would not have actually happened without the knowledge of the man who is the #1 citizen of the country. Even if he doesn't have documentary evidence as to being briefed, there must have been verbal communication to the president, only for him to perhaps have said, well, go look into it first and get back to me. But it appears as if the people who work with the president have overreached themselves in this one. And it is very obvious it's not a tasty thing at the moment.
Beyond that, it was a public knowledge. It was in the public domain that the EFCC declared the man even wanted.
Most definitely was declared wanted, having first been sacked by the last administration in 2013 over his inability to account for the monies he was supposed to help recover and sanitize the pension scheme of the country. And that really has to do with the kind of system we run here, where people who are supposed to help make things better eventually, make it worse. For instance, we have the grass cutting scandal. This is a secretary to the government of the Federation. There's a connection here. You're supposed to help assuage the problems that seems to be bedeviling our brothers and sisters in the northeastern parts of the country, only for you to allot part of the contract to your own company, and you know very well that that is not supposed to be. So I think for the Maina story, the family also has spoken, if I must say here, that there is a whole lot that we appear not to have heard, that this man came into the country because the government of this country actually helped him to come into the country. Because if you're wanted, in 2013, after I was sacked and declared wanted, he ran to Dubai, only for him to return to the country. And I have to say that in the past 2 weeks, I've even seen the gubernatorial aspiration of this man to vie for the governorship position in Borno State. Obviously, there are certain things. And if you look at it, I'm beginning to wonder, why is it that we've had the Attorney General of the Federation repeatedly come on the front burner of issues that are very controversial? We knew he had a big bat with the EFCC helmsman at some point. And I really think that the president must begin to think about how he has to cut into size, or cut to size, as it were, the people who are under his employ. It's important.
Right. Yeah. Now, this is something that has bothered everyone in really. Why do you think an administration that has got this posturing, a certain posturing towards corruption, will choose to be associated with someone, who has been linked to corrupting practices and has refused, if you agree with me, to clear his name, to come out and claim himself of corrupt
If you look at it, I think the president got it wrong when he made his appointments. Do not forget that this president, our president's wife, has come out at first to say they don't know the people who are in government with him, that he doesn't even know 50% of the people. And she has also come out to talk about some hyenas and some jackals somewhere, that when the Lion King returns, he will do justice. It tells you that the wife even understands that the president perhaps thinking about kith and kin rather than square pegs and square holes, have got himself into this mess. He did not have a cabinet until about 6 months into this administration. That tells you that rather than really look at the people who are capable of helping him deliver on the promises and as well as the dividends of democracy, he perhaps has appeared to have gone the way where his predecessors, many of them I should say, have gone. And that accounts for why we've had repeated shenanigans in government where people cannot really, be held to account for the things they said. And let me also say this for the records. I think it is high time the APC-led government of the president begins to take responsibility for their actions and inactions. You cannot always point accusing fingers at a past administration. You've spent over 2 years within the precincts of power, and you'd expect
the blame game should be over.
The blame game should be over. The point is you should take responsibility. And even Femi Adesina yesterday was practically rambling across an issue that is better known to people across the Federation and even across the Atlantic. So I think it is important for them to understand that we cannot be fooled anymore. It is better you own up to certain things that you're either incapable of doing or that you still need to take more steps and address, rather than for you to just look elsewhere and say it means nothing when it means much more than the eyes can see.
All right. It's important that we ask this question.
What is it, please?
What damage do you think this whole mess will do to the president's stance, and by extension, the whole administration on corruption?
I think it's collateral damage, I must say. Collateral damage in the sense that if Nigerians had not remained relentless and demanding that the president acts on these Babacha reports, the reports of the vice president, I think we may not have heard about the sacking. And if you also look at it, there have been lots of issues with money somewhere. For instance, we do not have a clear amount of the figures so far recovered by this administration from those who initially looted us. And let me also say this for the world to hear. The Dasuki Gate, as I would like to call it, was a scandal that got to the tune of $2.1 billion. A committee was set up since 2016 of October, and it finished its report. It is over a year now. The recommendation, in fact, indicted 27 ministers, 4 former ministers, and a number of top brass of the military. Up until this moment, nothing has been done. And as a matter of fact, the commission or the committee that was set up to investigate, former top brass as well, retired, it was dissolved. At some point, the National Assembly was also wanted to use, they wanted to use the National Assembly to actually alter the recommendations of that report. But it wasn't possible because the committee members who sat and looked into the matter refused it. One of them even is dead as I speak. So I think it is very, very important to know that this administration, obviously on the side of security, has done something we could applaud, but corruption that appears to be the cankerworm that is eating deep into our fabrics daily is something that it has not cleansed itself of. And it is important it does that, or else it's more or less like recycling the past. And let me say this one more time as I leave. We have well over 71 to 72 million voters in this country. We have 8 million voter cards yet to be collected. The people must believe that they have the mandate to take this back. If this administration is what they feel is good for them, when 2019 comes, go ahead. But when 2019 comes, let Nigerians make judicious decisions by going to the polls and giving democracy what it means and making it act rightly.
All right, public affairs analyst Adeniyi Kunu, that's a very beautiful way to end it. Thank you very much indeed for coming.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right.